As Amara's mother was on her way coming, her phone rang. It was Ada. "Mama, you need to come home. We have a family emergency," Ada said urgently. Concerned, their mother rushed back to the family house. When she arrived, Ada explained everything to her in private. Their mother was devastated, but knew they had to handle the situation carefully. They couldn't let this secret destroy their family. That night, the family gathered in the living room. Chief Okafor sensed something was wrong. His wife, Ada, and Amara all had serious expressions. The air was thick with tension. "What's going on?" Chief Okafor asked, his voice filled with concern. Amara looked at her father, her heart pounding in her chest. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "Papa, I've told them everything that happened on that night. It was my fault. I made a mistake." As she explained the events of that night, Chief Okafor's face went from confusion to shock and then to anger. He stood up abruptly. "Amara, I've thought about the whole thing that happened that night. I did not sleep with you that night." He shook his head vehemently. "I woke up that morning and you were beside me, but nothing happened. You must have been hallucinating, and I'm even suspecting Amara of developing a mental illness. You have been avoiding me all this while and not allowing me to explain myself to you." Amara's mind was in turmoil. She couldn't understand what was happening. She was sure of what she had done, yet her father denied it. The whole family was thrown into confusion as they tried to piece together the events of that night. Doubts began to creep into everyone's mind, and the atmosphere at home grew tense and uneasy. Their mother stepped in, trying to calm Chief Okafor down. "Okafor, we need to stay calm and think about how to handle this. We are a family, and we will get through this together," she said firmly. Chief Okafor took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. He knew his wife was right. They needed to find a way to deal with this situation as a family. The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. The family decided to keep the incident a secret, fearing the social stigma and the impact it would have on their reputation. Amara, however, couldn't shake off the guilt and shame. She knew she needed to do something to make amends. One morning, Amara decided to visit the church. She hoped that seeking spiritual guidance would help her find peace. The church was quiet, and she knelt down to pray, tears streaming down her face. The priest noticed her distress and approached her. "My child, what troubles you?" the priest asked kindly. Amara hesitated, but then decided to pour out her heart. She explained everything, hoping for some guidance. The priest listened attentively and then spoke gently. "Amara, everyone makes mistakes. It's how we choose to move forward that defines us. You must seek forgiveness from those you've wronged, and most importantly, forgive yourself," the priest advised. Amara felt a sense of relief hearing those words. She realized that she needed to start by making things right with her family. She returned home with a renewed sense of purpose. At home, Amara gathered her family and apologized once again, this time with a deeper understanding of the pain she had caused. Chief Okafor, though still hurt, saw the sincerity in his daughter's eyes. He knew that holding on to anger would only tear their family apart. "Amara, I forgive you. Let's work together to move past this," Chief Okafor said, his voice filled with emotion. The family embraced, tears of relief and hope streaming down their faces. They knew it wouldn't be easy, but they were determined to rebuild their lives and support each other. Amara began to show signs of pregnancy, but fear held her back from seeking confirmation. Her stomach started to bloat, and other telltale signs of pregnancy became increasingly noticeable. Ada and Ngozi, her sisters, also observed these changes, but kept their concerns to themselves, each dreading the possibility that Amara might be pregnant for obvious reasons. The atmosphere at home grew tense as days passed. The sisters exchanged worried glances but avoided discussing their fears openly. They were all haunted by the thought of what Amara's pregnancy could mean for their family. The uncertainty and silence only added to the weight of the situation. Amara felt the growing pressure. She could no longer ignore the changes in her body. The physical symptoms were becoming harder to hide, and the emotional toll was immense. Every day, she grappled with anxiety and the fear of the unknown. The prospect of confirming her pregnancy was terrifying, yet she knew she couldn't avoid it forever. One morning, after a particularly restless night, Amara decided it was time to face her fears. She couldn't continue living in uncertainty. With a heavy heart, she made her way to the hospital, her mind racing with a mix of hope and dread. At the hospital, Amara sat in the waiting room, her hands trembling slightly. The wait felt interminable. Finally, she was called in for the test. The nurse's gentle reassurance did little to calm her nerves. After what felt like an eternity, the test results were ready. As the doctor entered the room with the results, Amara's heart pounded in her chest. She took a deep breath, bracing herself for the news. The doctor looked at her kindly and said, "Amara, the test confirms that you are pregnant." Tears filled Amara's eyes as a mix of emotions washed over her. Relief, fear, and a sense of impending responsibility all swirled within her. She knew this was just the beginning of a challenging journey, but she also realized she needed to find the strength to face whatever came next. It was time to confront the truth and start preparing for the future. As she walked home, a million thoughts raced through her mind. How was this possible? Was her father lying to her, or had something else happened that night? She decided to keep the news to herself for a while, unsure of how to break it to her family. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of the secret grew heavier. Finally, she couldn't bear it any longer and confided in her sister Ada. "Ada, I'm pregnant," Amara whispered, tears streaming down her face. Months later, the household was filled with a mixture of anxiety and excitement as Amara's due date approached. The entire family had been preparing for this moment, but the anticipation was palpable. Amara, despite the turmoil of the past months, felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose as she looked forward to the birth of her child. The day finally arrived. Amara was rushed to the hospital, accompanied by her mother and Ada. The hospital room was a blend of modern medical equipment and the warmth of family presence. Amara's mother held her hand tightly, offering words of comfort and encouragement, while Ada stood by with a reassuring smile, ready to support her sister through this critical moment. As the labor progressed, Amara's mind raced with thoughts of the future. She wondered about the challenges and joys that motherhood would bring, and how she would navigate this new chapter of her life. The pain was intense, but the determination to meet her baby boy gave her strength. After hours of labor, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Amara's eyes welled up with tears of relief and joy as the nurse placed her son in her arms. The baby boy, with his tiny fingers and delicate features, was a symbol of new beginnings. Amara looked at him with a mixture of love and awe, realizing that her life had forever changed in that instant. The return home was a moment of celebration. The house was decorated with balloons and banners welcoming the newest member of the family. Chief Okafor, though initially stern, couldn't hide his pride and joy as he held his grandson for the first time. The family gathered around, each taking turns to marvel at the baby and offer their blessings. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and joyful moments. Amara's mother stayed close, helping her daughter with the baby and offering wisdom from her own experiences as a mother. Ada and Ngozi visited frequently, bringing gifts and lending a hand whenever needed. Amara felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility, but also a profound sense of fulfillment. She watched her son sleep, feed, and grow, each day bringing new milestones and memories. Despite the challenges and the uncertainty that lay ahead, Amara knew that she had the support of her family and the strength within herself to face whatever came next. The baby boy quickly became the center of attention. His smiles and giggles brought light and joy to the household. The bond between Amara and her son grew stronger with each passing day. She found solace in his presence, knowing that he was her motivation to strive for a better future. One weekend, Amara decided to visit a nearby town where a friend had opened a new restaurant. She hoped to unwind and enjoy some time away from the pressures of work and family. At the restaurant, Amara spotted a familiar face. It was Chidi. Chidi was in a state of panic and confusion. Their eyes met, and Chidi froze. He knew it was time to come clean. "Amara, we need to talk," Chidi said, his voice filled with regret. They found a quiet spot, and Chidi began to recount the events of that night. When he woke up that morning and saw Amara lying next to him, he immediately feared the worst. He couldn't fathom what his boss, Chief Okafor, would do if he found out Chidi had slept with his daughter. Desperation took over, and Chidi decided to do something drastic. He carefully picked up Amara, who was still groggy from the night before, and carried her to Chief Okafor's room. He placed her beside her father and fled the house, running out of town without telling anyone. "I'm so sorry, Amara. I didn't know what else to do. I was scared," Chidi confessed, tears in his eyes. Amara listened in shock. So it wasn't her father after all. It was Chidi. Relief washed over her, mixed with anger and confusion. But as she looked into Chidi's remorseful eyes, she realized he was genuinely sorry. "Chidi, you should have told me the truth from the beginning," Amara said, her voice trembling. "But I understand why you did what you did. There is something you also need to know. After that night's encounter, I became pregnant and has given birth to a boy." Chidi reached out and took her hand. "Amara, I'm ready to make things right. I want to be there for you and our child. Will you forgive me?" Amara took a deep breath. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that holding on to anger wouldn't help her or her child. She nodded slowly. "I forgive you, Chidi, but for the whole family to also hear this side of the story and forgive you, especially my father, you need to arrange and come home. I will not disclose this meeting to anyone." One day, there was a knock on the door, and to everyone's shock, it was Chidi. He had finally come back, and the moment he walked in, the tension in the air was palpable. Chidi looked nervous as he stood at the doorway. He had been running from the truth and the consequences of that night for far too long. Amara, Ada, and their mother gathered in the living room, eyes wide with surprise. Chief Okafor soon joined them, his face a mixture of anger and confusion. "Chidi, what are you doing here?" Chief Okafor's voice was stern, barely hiding his anger. Chidi took a deep breath and began to speak, his voice trembling. "Chief, Amara, I owe you all an explanation. That night, I made a terrible mistake. I thought I had slept with Chief Okafor's daughter, and out of fear, I fled. This had weighed heavily on me for a long time, and wanted to find the right opportunity to disclose it to you. The room fell silent. Amara's eyes welled up with tears as she listened. Chidi continued, I know my actions caused a lot of pain, but I swear I never meant for any of this to happen. I was just so scared of what Chief Okafor would do to me. Chief Okafor's face turned red with anger. Do you realize what you have done? You left without a word, abandoning your responsibilities. We had a contract to complete, and you vanished. You have caused us nothing but trouble. Chidi lowered his head in shame. I know, Chief. I am truly sorry. I let my fear control me. Amara couldn't hold back her emotions any longer. She stepped forward, her voice shaky but determined. Father, it's my fault too. I need to tell you all the truth. That night, I used a potion I got from a fetish priest. I was desperate and thought it would help me, but I made a mistake. I was supposed to mix the potion with water, but in my panic, I mixed it with alcohol. That must have affected Chidi's judgment. Everyone in the room was stunned. Ada and their mother looked at Amara with disbelief, while Chief Okafor's expression softened, though his anger was still evident. Amara, why didn't you come to us for help? Why did you go to such lengths? He asked. Tears streamed down Amara's face as she replied, I felt so lost and alone. I thought this was my only chance to have a family of my own. I didn't realize how much harm I would cause. Chief Okafor took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. Amara, we are your family. We could have helped you, but what's done is done. We need to find a way to move forward. Chidi looked at Amara, his eyes filled with remorse. Amara, I am so sorry for everything. I want to make things right. If you'll allow me, I want to be a part of your life and our child's life. With the truth finally out, Amara felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in months. The family began to heal, and Amara felt hopeful about the future. She and Chidi decided to get married, and the whole family came together to celebrate their union. The wedding was a beautiful affair filled with joy and laughter. As they stood together holding their baby boy, Amara realized that despite all the trials and tribulations, they had emerged stronger. She looked at Chidi, grateful for his love and support. Thank you for standing by me, Chidi. I couldn't have done this without you, Amara said, her voice filled with emotion. Chidi smiled and kissed her forehead. We're in this together, Amara, always. With their family's blessing and the love they had for each other, Amara and Chidi embraced their new beginning, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey had been tough, but it had taught them the true meaning of love, forgiveness, and resilience. The moral lesson of this story is that desperation and fear can lead us to make bad decisions. Amara's desire to have a child made her do something she later regretted, and Chidi's fear of getting in trouble caused him to run away and hide the truth. But in the end, facing the truth and seeking forgiveness brought them peace and a chance to start over. The story teaches us the importance of honesty, forgiveness, and courage. It's a reminder that even when things go wrong, being truthful and asking for forgiveness can help fix the situation and bring people closer together. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more interesting African folk tales. Thank you.